Okay. Um, so I'm assuming that this is not the first reading of Cain and Abel for you, but uh, what's your take on why God rejected Cain's offering?
Um, it, there's first fruits, but it does seem like maybe Cain was holding back. I don't know if he rejected it. Is he wasn't? He didn't.
He didn't
There might be
accept.
a distinction between rejecting and not accepting yet.
Well, I mean, not for Cain, certainly. I mean, Cain
Yeah,
certainly.
Cain's understanding was not that.
Yeah.
Cain's understanding was his brother's was accepted. Why wasn't his?
Yeah. And also, look, most of us throughout the Bible's history have understood it as a rejection. You know, that he accepted Abel's and Cain not accepted yet, or rejected for now, or just, again, clearly a different response. But, and look, obviously, the Bible doesn't, the author doesn't explain God's reasoning. So what's the, I mean, what can you see in the text that gives you some explanation as to God's motivation?
It is um, through the soil. Abel brought the choicest of the firstlings, and it's not described that way for Cain. Cain just brought an offering.
Right.
So perhaps Abel brought uh, a more significant or an offering that was more dear to him than Cain did on his part.
Right. He brought the first of the first, the fat, whereas Cain brought the fruit of the soil. The fruit. So basically, Cain brought some produce compared to the very, very best sheep, etc., for Abel. Um, but um, but there, and this has been, again, I think ever since commentary has begun, thousands of years ago. This has been the standard, the leading explanation as to why. You know, what was the problem with Abel's offering that made it unworthy, less worthy, or unworthy? Um, but commentators have pointed out, or critics of the commentary have pointed out two problems with this reading, with this explanation for God's conduct. First, if this is indeed the case, if this is indeed the reason why God said no thanks, then God's rejection makes even less sense. You know, because it makes no practical sense, and more important, it makes no moral sense. Okay, because look, if your two kids prepare a Mother's Day breakfast for your wife, and just to thank her for being a great mom and everything else, and one of them just made a stack of pancakes, whereas the other prepared an omelet and hash browns and sausage and fresh squeezed juice and the flour, etc., etc. Why would she throw the pancakes to the trash? Okay, not only does she like pancakes, assuming that God likes sacrifices, which is a question we can deal with some other time, but more important, it's rude, or it's unjust. Forget rude. It's unjust to throw the pancakes in your kid's face when he did something nice. You know, he told you thank you with a gift, and you rejected the thank you because somebody else gave a better gift. Yeah, so it makes, again, no practical sense, but more important for God, no apparent moral sense. Okay, again, if we both contribute to charity and I donate $100 and you donate 10,000, that charity will be foolish to throw away my $100. $100 is $100, and it would be unethical to do so. So so if we accept this conventional explanation, this leading explanation for God's action here, we still don't. It still doesn't understand. Doesn't explain why he did this, because we're assuming that God isn't this rude or this unjust. So the explanation doesn't explain anything. The second question is, so first, if this explanation is true, we're still in the dark in our attempt to understand God. But the second question is whether this explanation is even warranted. Okay? So read the same lines again, and I don't know how your translator translated it, but yeah, so read the same line again, and see if you have really any evidentiary basis to make this charge against Cain, because the only part of the text that lends credence to this description, to the description of Abel's offering, the firstlings, the fat thereof, blah blah blah, in was it 4 and 5? 4, yeah, 4. Whereas Cain is just the fruit of the soil. It might be the case, as you and so many of us have said, that Abel gave a better gift. But again, just check the text and see if the same words can suggest a different understanding of the two gifts, of the relative value of the two gifts.
So in the course of time, Cain brought an offering to the Lord from the fruit of the soil, and Abel for his part brought the choicest of the firstlings of his flock. The Lord paid heed to Abel
okay.
and his offering.
Stop. Could you read me again about in Abel?
And Abel for his part brought the choicest of his firstlings of his flock.
Okay, so your translator, I can tell you, sides with the explanation that you and so many others have given, because he removed the problem in the translation. In the Hebrew, this is what it says: and Cain brought from the fruit of the soil as a gift to the Lord, and Abel brought he too, but in Hebrew that's how it is. It's first the verb. But in Abel, he too brought from the first of his sheep, from their milk and their fat, from their milk, and God accepted to Abel and to his gift. Okay. So let's go with what I just read. And Abel, he too brought from the first of his sheep and their milk, etc. So, do you see what the translator eliminated?
The for his part?
Yeah, so basically your translator said for his part, and my text says, and he too. He also. Okay, so Cain brought from the fruit of the ground, of the soil, and Abel, he too brought of the firstlings of his flock and the milk thereof. Okay, so he too, like Cain, brought from the firstlings, etc. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Cain also, that both of them brought from the firstlings and the fat of, etc. But if the biblical author wanted to juxtapose the quality of the two brothers' offerings, why would he say he too? Okay, he'd instead say something like what your translator said. Cain brought of the fruit of the soil, and Abel, he, for his part, brought of the firstlings. Okay, It's not and he too, but rather but. It's a contrast. The Hebrew original has them joined. The
More
quality of the
parallel as
gift.
opposed.
Pardon?
There's more parallel as opposed to contrasted.
Yeah. Like he did this and he too did this. Okay. Whereas your translator, it's a problem. The original is a problem, and your translator solved it for you, so you won't have to scratch your head like, what is this he too? Or in fact, look, if the author really wanted to contrast them, he really would use the word but. Okay, Cain brought X, but Abel brought Y. Okay, so the word to or also that appears here in the Hebrew works against this common interpretation, the traditional interpretations of the two gifts as being. So again, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, but it's just odd that an author who means to portray different gifts uses the word to or also. Because it's the two suggests that Abel was following Cain's lead. Okay, so what translation are you using?
JPS,
Okay.
Jewish Publication Society.
Yeah. So I'm almost sure that the King James doesn't edit it this way. It says, actually, let me look at it. 4:4:4. Where is it? Genesis 4:4. It always gives the. Yeah. And Abel he also brought. Okay, that's in the King James. Okay, so sometimes the translation, what I haven't seen for his part, I saw a translation that says, and Abel, he also, and then they insert, brought a gift. The firstling of his flock, so they clarify that the also isn't for the quality, the first, the fat, etc., but just the gift. Okay, he also brought a gift. Dash, the first, the best, etc. So again, instead of allowing, as the King James does, instead of allowing readers to see the problem that the author placed here for us, and then let the reader try to resolve it, as we're doing here, you and I, the translators often edit away the problem for us. Okay, or he solves the problem for us. Either eliminates the problem or solves it. Well, I guess it's the same thing. And I think again that what you see here in the translation is the mindset of the that permeates biblical criticism. Okay, that biblical criticism scholars approach the text assuming that the original author or editor or editors somehow botched the delivery. Okay, that the true intent of the story isn't delivered properly because of a bad editing job, or because the author didn't see that there's a problem here, and so here, let me solve that problem for you. Okay, so the translator or the biblical critic or whatever understands better than the author, or better than whoever finalized this text, what the sentence should have said, and therefore they remove the problem for you. In this case, removing the word to. And of course the problem here is that the translator might be solving a problem the way it makes sense to him, as a modern person, or as a Christian, or as a Muslim, or as a whatever, or as a certain kind of Jew in the 16th century, okay, when this text was written for different kinds of readers. So, okay, so it's true that the text doesn't say that Cain offered his best, but it also presents Abel's gift as somehow similar, somehow on a par with Cain. And there's nothing else in the story to support the impression that Cain's offering was of lesser quality than Abel's. Okay, so basically what you're left with is a jump ball. Okay, there's a bit of evidence that Cain gave a bad gift, because Abel's is described first, fat, etc., etc. But there's also a bit of evidence to suggest that the two gifts were similar. So you could really go both ways. Okay, so if it is a jump ball, why is it that commentators through the ages, from all sorts of different traditions, and the same with you and I. You know, if you and I just read this, why would we immediately notice and highlight and see a meaning in that description of Abel's gift as first, fat, etc., etc.? You know, why have we been doing this for 3,000 years? You know, why have we noticed the first of, etc., etc., but not noticed the word to? Or if we noticed, like your translator, if we noticed it, we thought that's misleading. You know, the real intent of the author was not to use to. And so let me correct that.
It seems like everyone's kind of focusing on the quality of the gift as being why the biblical God accepted one and not the other. It had to do with the gift.
Yeah, but why? I mean, so that's
why.
Yeah. So what? Because look, if the text itself can lead us to think that Cain's gift was crappier, or that Cain's gift was similar, again, either with the word to or without the word to, why have all of us gravitated to the first explanation? You know, that the gifts are not similar.
Hold on, sweetie. Can I help you in a second? They're right there on the counters.
Because it is consistent. You know, all different eras, different religious traditions, they all gravitated to this explanation. So, and again, the text is ambiguous. You can go this way and you can go this way. So why have all of us gravitated to this explanation rather than the other?
That Cain's is somehow defective. Yeah. Isn't it because that Cain's wasn't accepted?
Well, no. I mean, it wasn't accepted. We know that's not ambiguous. We know it wasn't accepted. The big question is why. Okay, so
is it in my head? I have it that it could have not been accepted for a number of reasons. The two that come up best for me is that it was a defect in the gift, or was a defect in maybe Cain's heart in giving the gift. So okay. Was it a defect in Cain or a defect in the gift?
Well, look, there's the idea that there was a defect in the gift. There's some textual basis for that. Okay, the only basis for thinking that there's a defect in the person is what happens in the next scene with the murder. Okay, but again, so.
Well, I'm also curious as to why Cain thought it necessary to give a gift to make a sacrifice. There's no commandment for sacrifice. Right. There's no precedent for sacrifice.
You're right. Up until Mount Sinai, all the sacrifices are it's not like the Mother's Day thing. It's not a commandment. It's people saying thank you. This is how they say thank you to God. Okay, they're not even asking for anything. It's not like I'm sacrificing, please bring rain. Okay, it really is to thank.
But isn't the text ambiguous as to the reason? I mean, it doesn't say that Cain was humble before God and gave him sacrifice. It could have been that Cain was trying to bribe God for something. I don't see it coming clearly on either side.
Well, it says a gift. Cain brought from the fruit of the soil a gift to God. Gift, an offering to God. It doesn't say that he was asking for anything. Okay, like he wasn't a supplicant. It says a gift or an offering. But again, just to stick to that issue of, if there are two ways of reading that sentence about Abel's gift, why have all of us for thousands of years skipped over that word too and jumped to the second explanation, to the firstlings, etc.? I mean, there's clearly something psychological here. If people from different cultures, different religious traditions, all kind of gravitate.
Is it that we want, or people want to think that there's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it, or that it's easier to see it as a contrast and to explain?
Well, it seems to me that, look, at least you have an explanation. Like we said about the Mother's Day gift. It might raise questions about what kind of mother is this? What kind of moral sense does this mother have? But at least we understand why she did this thing, why she rejected one gift. Okay, we basically it's an attempt by the translators or by the readers, by the commentators for thousands of years. It seems on the face of it arbitrary. Okay, we know for sure. Look, without this reading that the gifts were of different quality, then we can't fathom God's choice here. Okay, and we know for sure that Cain himself saw no rhyme or reason for God's rejection. Okay, and look, even we, if you think of the first time you read this, you didn't understand why God rejected Cain and accepted Abel. Okay? And that's what led you to ask your rabbi or your Sunday school teacher or whatever, why did this? Why is this? And they taught you, look at the difference. Here it says from the fruit of the soil. Here it says the first of the first and the fat of the crop, or whatever it says. Okay, so somebody pointed out to us the subtlety of the different description of the two gifts, because at first reading we didn't see it. Okay, so basically the reader feels like Cain. What is God doing here? Why is God being unjust or arbitrary? Okay, let me try to find out the justice or the moral thinking of God here. There must be a reason. If there's no difference in the gifts, no difference in the people, these brothers, then God is simply left as some sort of capricious and arbitrary creature. Okay, and we know that Cain thought this. Cain's surprise and anger are so great because God seems to be acting arbitrarily rather than justly. Okay, so this is a story. What happens here with Cain, the story of Cain, is a story about a man who's scratching his head over God's seemingly arbitrary actions. Okay, so it's a story about a man who's witnessing God's injustice or unequal treatment, and he's puzzled. He's puzzled, he's angry, he doesn't understand why he was rejected and his brother was. So, okay, and if you think of it this way, again, think of Cain himself, how he felt. Again, maybe he simply didn't realize that his gift was crappier. Fine. But we at least have a 50-50 reading that supports Cain in this. Okay, so maybe the gift was crappy, which again leaves us scratching our head as to God's moral reasoning. And maybe the gift was similar. in which case we're certainly scratching our head, and God does seem arbitrary, as Cain saw him. Okay. So, so the thing is, if this really is a story about a man puzzled and bitter over God's arbitrary action towards him, it recalls the story of the book of Job, which we'll read at the very end of the year. And that's a development, a full development of this, again, this classic story about the seeming injustice of bad things happening to good people. Okay, so the book of Job, have you read Job?
Hmm?
Okay, so you know all the details. You know, a righteous man loses his wealth, gets sick, suffers terribly, all of his children die, and basically from riches to rags, from health to suffering, etc. And then when these three friends of his come to counsel him, they explain to Job exactly what your Sunday school teacher or what your translator explains to you here. Okay? You did something to deserve this. Okay? God is not arbitrary. God is just. So if you're being punished, you must have done something in the past, and therefore do some soul searching. Find your sin and repent, and that'll get you right with God. Okay? So the reason I bring it up is that if we interpret the Cain story the way we all do, with the assumption that Cain must have offered a lesser gift than Abel, must have done something wrong, what we're doing is what Job's three friends did in that book. Okay, so in both cases, both in the case of Cain and the case of Job, the audience, you and me, the readers, in Cain and the three friends in Job, the audience assumes that God is just and that there must be a good and moral reason for God's action. Okay? God does not act on a whim. God does not act arbitrarily. Okay? So I think that explains why we've all embraced this explanation that we have about the crappy gift, because it explained it means to explain. I think on a deeper, on a second level, God seems just as arbitrary. In fact, maybe even worse, for rejecting a gift because it's not as good as somebody else's gift. But put that to the side. I think we've looked past the word "to" because at least it offers us a defense of God. That Abel really isn't worthy. His gift really is subpar. And the connection between the two stories, or every religion, every ethical system, religious or otherwise, deals with this. This is the most burning problem in any theology and any moral construction for the world. Okay, the problem that Job and Cain face here. Okay, the people's frustration with apparent injustice in the world. People not understanding how is it that a just God allows a volcano to erupt and destroy a village, killing thousands, or allowing the Holocaust, or whatever else. Okay, or having a child run over by a car. Okay. So this problem, have you come across the term theodicy?
Yes.
Pardon?
Yes, and
Yeah,
like a homework.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, you're right. Yeah. So it's this contrast between the fact that we have a just God, and also at the same time evil and injustice in the world. And so, the problem of theodicy is, how do these two things fit together? It seems contradictory. So throughout human history, not just in Judaism or monotheism, what solutions have we, humanity, offered for this problem?
Oftentimes free will is talked about, that the evil comes as a result of people's free will and choices to choose evil.
Okay, right. So God is just, but God isn't all powerful. Okay, if God really ran the world like a puppeteer, then yes, then he would be in control of everything, and there wouldn't be an evil. But he doesn't have. He's not all powerful. We are in charge. Like God is not dictating to me to lift this glass of water. Okay? I am choosing. If I'm committing murder or rape or whatever else, that's my action. It's not God's. Okay, so that's one solution, that God is not all powerful. What else?
God is mysterious, and our understanding of just and unjust or good and evil doesn't see things from a God's eye perspective or understanding.
Right. So
incomprehensibility of God.
Right. Okay. God is just, but we can't understand his sense of justice. We're not intellectually competent to judge God's justice. What seems unjust to us might be just to him because he has a better, bigger moral understanding. What else? You missed the most basic one.
That God's unjust?
Okay, yeah. That God is not just. And again, that's the Greek solution. The Greek gods, sometimes they're just, at other times they're callous and mean, at other times they're indifferent, at other times they're hot-headed, at times they're merciful. Okay, the Greek god is capricious and arbitrary. That's his nature. And that explains injustice. He does terrible things because he's angry, he does good things. Okay. Or God doesn't exist. Okay, it kind of goes along with the free will. Okay, that God doesn't exist, and therefore it's just all up to humans and chance, and that's why bad things happen. Okay, so either God doesn't exist, or number two, God is not just. Then there's a solution that Job's friends offered. Okay, and what we offered for our traditional explanation for the Cain story, that God is just, and if we see suffering and injustice, it's our task to look more closely to understand the justice of God's actions. Okay, that it's some punishment for some misconduct that's hidden from us at first glance. That's what Job's friends are telling him. You think, and your friends think, that you're a good man, but clearly you have done something that you're being punished for. So you've earned your punishment justly. Okay, so it's basically if the problem is bad things happening to good people, the solution is no, you're not a good person. If bad things are happening to you, you did something bad to earn it. You don't know it. Maybe we need to understand it, but certainly suffering is a punishment, justly earned. And then the what we just said. Oh, actually, another explanation is that God is just, and you have not earned your punishment. This is not an earned punishment, but rather a test. Okay, so this is not a punishment for something that you did. It's a test of your commitment to God, or your perseverance, or character. And then there's the explanation that you said about that we're just not competent to understand divine justice. Okay, so you go all the way from there's no God to there's no way. This is not a question. Theodicy is not a question that we should contemplate because we don't have the wherewithal, the intellectual or moral wherewithal, to even engage in it. Okay. And this last explanation is the purpose of the book of Job is to introduce to tell us this last explanation. Okay, if you remember, it ends with God's monologue from the storm, and that's what God. That's what God essentially says. You are not going to judge me. You cannot judge me. Okay, and the and the reason you know this, how do I know that that's the message of the book of Job? And again, we'll talk about it at the time. But you and I, the readers, we understand why Job is suffering through all this. Job doesn't know, the friends don't know, but you and I, the readers, know that God had a bet with the Satan, with this adversary. Okay, so we know that Job's friends were wrong, that Job did not earn his misfortune by committing some sort of sin. Okay, but God doesn't sit and explain himself. That they're his sense of justice. Why it is just for Job to go through all of this. Instead, he says to Job, "Don't try to understand me, and I'm not going to explain myself to you." So, jumping back to Cain's story is about the same human problem. Okay, the arbitrariness and injustice of life. Okay, and I think if we notice the fact that that word "to" exists there, that in fact it's a jump ball, and that even if we go with the traditional explanation, we're still left with an arbitrary God, with a God whose moral judgment is weird for us. It's kind of immoral. This punishment for somebody giving a lesser gift. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is that we might have here a story in Cain that tells us that introduces us to the same problem of man's puzzlement and frustration with God's seeming injustice, and that we might have the same solution too. Okay, that there's no discernible reason for God's rejection of Cain. There's no discernible reason for for what happens to Job as they see it. Okay, they don't know about that bet in the sky. But so it might be that just like we know for certain, because God tells us in the book of Job that Job did not earn his suffering, we might have the same, it might be the same story contracted into one chapter here. It might be that Cain did not earn his rejection. The gifts might have been similar, and God acted seemingly arbitrarily here.
So in the Job story, the gift would be Job's righteous actions in life.
Yeah. Look, he did.
And then Cain's it would be his offering. Would it also come up then? Because when the Satan in Job says that Job is only doing this because he's got such a blessed life, and so you take that all away, is that same dynamic going on in the Cain story?
Yeah.
Like
So
the
look,
only reason Cain's doing this is because he wants a blessed, or he's looking for favor.
Well, again, the text doesn't say he wants to get a favor. It says he wants to thank God. It's a gift that he gives God, or an offering that he gives God. Okay, but look.
Does that word ever come up in the context of something that's not, or that's meant to persuade somebody to do a favor?
Look, the word mincha in modern Hebrew is a synonym for gift.
Okay.
Look, I'll have to see in this
EDB.
Concordance, to see if all the different ways it appears, but it appears elsewhere in the Bible as a gift that you offer a king, for example. Like the Queen of Sheba brought gifts for Solomon. So again, gifts, you could read any gift, just like the kid's gift to their mother on Mother's Day. It's a gift so that you'll keep on feeding them and clothing them, etc., etc. But it might, like it's a kind of Ayn Randian reading underneath seemingly unselfish acts, and it might be true, but if that's the case, then all gifts are like that. If Cain's gift is self-serving, then all gifts are.
But Job's wasn't, because Job continued even after. I mean, that was part of the test in the Job stories. Once that was all taken from him, he continued to act righteously. He continued to give gifts.
No, look, I'm not saying, obviously what happens from here on is very different in Cain and Job, but the point is, in the book of Job, God tells us, the readers, and he tells Job's friends, and he tells Job in that final speech, that we are not competent to understand and judge God's actions and inactions. Okay? And then instead of trying to understand him and to judge him, we should just be thankful for everything that God did give us. Okay? All your sons and daughters died. Say thank you that you had sons and daughters. Okay? We have no cause, what God says in Job is, we have no cause to complain about what God fails to give us or what he takes from us, because we deserve nothing at all to begin with. Okay? Everything is a gift. A baby who dies at day one already should say thank you. He got more than he earned. Okay? The gift of that one day is not something that he earned. So by right, we should have nothing at all. Okay, the first breath is already a gift, and every breath after that is a gift. And so since we received so much, even the poorest and sickest of us, even Job in the depth of his suffering, therefore have no ground to complain when things go poorly for us, in terms of health or possessions or family or friends, etc. Okay, so consider that this story, the Cain story, might not be. I'm emphasis on the might. Okay, but it might not be a story about a bad man who earns God's scorn in scene 1, and then proves to us with the murder in scene 2 that God was right all along, because this fella really did have a rotten heart. Okay? It might instead be a story about a frustrated man, a man whose futile effort to understand God or to judge God, like Job and his friends, his futile effort to judge God drove him mad with rage and led him to the ultimate crime. Okay, so the story might be a warning to us. Don't let and this is again what God says in the final scene in the book of Job. Don't let your frustration with theodicy, with the seeming injustice in the world, lead you to forget who you are and your proper role in this world. Okay, don't, you readers reading the Torah, um, don't forget that you owe God gratitude for what He's given us, rather than resentment and anger and judgment for what He didn't give us or what He's taken from us. Because, scene 2, if you let injustice in the world make you resentful about what you don't have or what you've lost, instead of grateful for what you still have or what you had, then you really will go mad. Okay, if you obsess about injustice in the world. Hence, scene 2, where God tries to calm Cain down, but Cain doesn't. He's angry. Like the fact that Cain is angry indicates that he really doesn't understand what happened here. He thought that he deserved X, and he got Y.
Or at the very least, that his brother did not deserve more than he
Look,
deserved.
if my gift wasn't good enough, why was his? He didn't see any reason for this unequal treatment. So look, if you, and I think my reading of it as a story similar to Job, not the murder part, but this is it's a book about injustice, a book about man's inability to understand or to deal with this issue of theodicy. Okay, that God seems arbitrary, and just like your translator, God is not arbitrary. Let me fix this text. Okay, Job's friends insist God is not arbitrary. Job thinks that God isn't arbitrary. So he's trying to understand, God, why are you doing this? I know you exist. Okay, our solutions there that we offer, those 5 solutions. I know that there is a God. I know that God is just. It's not like one of those Greek gods. I know that whatever it is we said. Okay, so but something here doesn't work for me, for Job. Okay? So so we have this head scratching, this sufferer scratching his head and being frustrated and angry. Cain, Job. And then, just like in the book of Job, God speaks to the befuddled and resentful human. Okay? So if you read, does your translation have punctuation marks?
In the English or in the
in the English.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So when you read verses 5 through 7, what do you make of God's statement to Cain?
Why are you distressed and why is your face fallen? And they punctuate that with a question mark.
Yeah.
Surely if you do right, there is uplift. But if you do not do right, sin couches at the door. Its urges toward you, yet you can be its master.
Yeah. So, what's God saying? Like, what's the message here?
It seems going forward, if you do right, everything will be better. There'll be uplift. Your face won't be fallen anymore. And biblical God doesn't seem to understand why Cain reacted the way he did.
Yeah. So look, the suggestion, certainly with that translation punctuation, is again in line with what the 3 friends told Job. Okay, Cain, my friend, you're at fault here. If you do well, you will be accepted. Other translations have it as, if you do well, will you not be accepted? But same thing. Okay? If you do well, there will be uplift. Okay? You will be accepted and you'll be happy. Okay? So God is saying what all of us have been saying. Your gift wasn't accepted for a reason. You've earned your suffering. which is exactly what the three friends are tell Job. Do better next time, and fight fight the impulse to do the wrong thing. Okay, the sin is at your door, and and you can govern it. Okay, so do better next time by fighting your impulse to do the wrong thing. Okay, so this explanation, this explanation, this punctuation, has God in His speech to Cain giving that third explanation that we listed before. That there is justice here. That the sufferer has earned his suffering. You gave a crappy gift. This is what happens. The problem for us, when we read the book of Cain, the story of Cain, when we already know the book of Job, is that this explanation is the same one that Job's friends offer him. That the solution to the problem of injustice in the world is that it's not in fact injustice. Everyone who suffers earned his suffering by sinning. If you're suffering, it means that you've done something wrong, and you must examine your actions to see what you've done wrong. Okay, so it seems unjust to you, but that's because, look, basically, Cain, look at the gift your brother gave, and look at the gift you gave. Do better next time. Just like that. That's what Job's friends are telling him too. Now, so the problem is that in the book of Job, these three friends are cast as fools, as wrong, as foils, by God Himself. God tells that crowd, "You three friends don't know what you're talking about." Okay? Yet here, God says exactly what those foolish friends say there in that book. Okay, so on the one hand, fine. These are different books, different authors, different times maybe even written. We don't know when the book of Job was written, although speculation is that it's one of the oldest. So it might actually be roughly in the same era as the Torah. Who knows? But the point is, look, these really are different books, so perhaps they reflect...
Can you help me with cocoa melon?
I'm sorry, thanks.
Go ahead.
Just need to order a quick one.
Okay. Excuse me for one moment, sorry.
Go ahead. Sounds like an emergency.
All right, what do we need? Sorry about that.
Sure thing. So these are different books. Look, the documentary hypothesis says that there are different authors in the same sentence, but we can all accept that there are different authors to different books of the Bible. Certainly, that's far apart. So these two books might represent two different solutions to the problem of theodicy. Okay? But it might be that actually these two books actually align, with both of them providing, again, the classic story of theodicy, the classic story of kind of anger at God and misunderstanding or scratching your head at God, and then providing the same solution to the problem of injustice in the world. And here, this is what I asked you about punctuations. If you look at your Hebrew text, you'll see that the Bible has no punctuation marks. Okay? Punctuation marks were not invented yet 3,000 years ago when the Bible was written, or 3,500, or whenever it was written. So it means that we that we have various options as readers to insert punctuation marks as we read. Okay, and of course, punctuation changes the meaning of words. You know, punctuation changes the meaning of sentences, but also of words themselves in the sentence. So if let me share a screen. Actually, could you turn off your screen, your camera, that is? Share screen. Okay. Do you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So, so what you have here is the unpunctuated translation. Then you have it the way that most translators punctuate it. Okay. So why are you angry? You know, why is your face fallen? For if you do good, or if you do no. So if you do good, well. Okay? If you do good, you will do well. You'll be accepted. And if you don't, meaning if you don't do good, then sin lies at your doorstep and it desires you, but you must rule over it. Okay? And then the third is the way I mean, it's not mine, but it's the way other, you know, the commentators that I read and took this from, the way they punctuate it. Why are you angry, and why is your face fallen? For if you do well and if you don't, sin lies at your doorstep and it desires you, but you must rule over it. Okay, so you see the same words, just different music, different stoppages. Okay, so do me a favor, and I mean, you don't have to read it out loud, but just read the top translation without the punctuation marks. Okay,
The original?
Yeah, just read the original without bothering with the bottom two. In fact, just kind of maybe even block the page and just read it for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
You want me to read it out loud?
No, because if you read it out loud, you're definitely going to insert punctuation marks. Just kind of read it without any music, without any intonation in your mind. Okay, so what is the tone? You know, forget the content for of the words. Just kind of the music, the sentiment. If you think of a song, if you just listen to the music without listening to the lyrics. So here, if you just read the sentence without bothering with the individual meaning of the words, what's the tone of it? How would you describe the tone, the color, the sentiment of it?
Trying to comfort Cain.
Right.
God's trying to comfort Cain.
Yeah, it's comforting. It's genuinely. It's actually one of the only thing that for me is comparable is God's speech to Noah's family after the flood. Okay, this is very sweet. It's genuinely sweet and warm and consoling and caring. Okay, so now when you read the second rendering, the one with a punctuation mark, it's not consoling. It's, you know, it's like telling little Timmy, you're being spanked because you killed the cat. You know, you did something wrong, which is why you're being punished now. Okay, so what are we to make of it when we read a text and there's a clash between the tone and the content? Again, forgetting this for a second, just in general, if you read a text and the tone is soft, but the content is harsh, or the opposite. You know, like if you have, you know, one of the things they say about Clockwork Orange is that one of the reasons why the movie, why it kind of pulled a number on audiences, is that it's very beautiful to the eye, but very ugly to the mind. That it's very offensive to see what you're seeing, but it's very beautiful to the eye, and so it's this kind of clash between something that is aesthetically pleasing but morally disgusting. Okay, so what happened? Like when you again looking at the second rendering with the punctuation, what happens to you when you see a clash between the tone and the content?
I guess the tone changes in my mind.
Right. Yeah, you're right. You look. It's like if you think of like if you're going on a date, okay, and it's very romantic, walking under the moonlight, you're hand in hand, and she looks in your eyes and says in a soft, romantic, sincere kind of thing, like, David, I hate your guts. You disgust me. Okay, so what happens inside your head, it's exactly what you said, like, what the first thing that happens is, did I mishear something? I mean, like, there's some sort of discrepancy. These two things can't go together. The content doesn't match the tone. The lyrics don't match the music. Okay, so you're wondering, maybe you misunderstood the lyrics. Maybe you misunderstood what she said. Okay, or maybe you mistook the tone. Okay, but you're trying to match them. The contrast makes you try to re-listen, or kind of re-render what you've heard in a way that would make the words match the tone. Okay, either by either by redoing the tone, or thinking, I heard I hate your guts, but instead she probably said love. I love your guts. And that makes more sense because the tone was so lovely. Okay. So in our case, with God's caressing tone and the harsh words, we should do the same. We should consider that maybe we're misreading something here, either the tone or the words. Okay. So now, if you read the second, or actually contrast the second and third renderings, the one with the translators, the conventional punctuation, and my punctuation. In the translator's punctuation, God is explaining himself to Cain. God is telling Cain, I rejected you because you did something wrong. If you did the right thing, I would have accepted you. Or if you do the right thing tomorrow, I will accept you. According to my punctuation, again, it's not mine, it's those scholars that I've read, what is God saying in the third rendering?
It seems to say, it seems to still be comforting, because going forward, if you sin lies at your doorstep, but if you do well, and if you don't, sin lies at your doorstep. I guess it's telling him, like, going forward, you must. It's cautionary.
Yeah, but what does it mean, this, if you do well and if you don't?
That no matter if you do well or if you don't, sin lies at your doorstep.
Right.
Sin lies at your doorstep.
This is not whether you give a good gift or a bad gift. It doesn't change the real struggle in your real fate, your lot in life, and that is the temptation of sin. And so God is basically telling him, look, Cain, this little scene doesn't matter. If you do well and if you don't, it's the same outcome. Tomorrow will be the same, regardless of what happened here. Okay, in the grand scheme of things, basically he's telling him, even if next time his gift will be accepted, it still won't change his lot in life. You know? Your real problem is fighting temptation. If you do well and if you don't do well, sin lies at your doorstep. Okay? So God is counseling Cain to move on. Okay? Move on from this little episode. Like, move along, son. You know, keep your eye on the real problem you have in life, and that is controlling your nature, fighting against the temptation of sin. Okay? Injustice, or perceived injustice. Injustice is a given in life. Okay? Sometimes your gift doesn't get accepted. Okay? Sometimes, you know, he gets better looks than, you know, like he was born handsome, you're born ugly. Okay? She was born rich and had various advantages in life compared to you. He was born with parents who were more loving than yours, and that gave him other advantages. That guy was born smart. That guy was born strong. That guy was born blind. Okay? I caught a disease that you didn't catch. Your house caught fire, killing all your family and leaving you penniless. Okay? That guy was convicted of a crime he didn't commit. That guy had his life savings stolen by Bernie Madoff. Okay? So if you let all these things that you perceive as injustice in the world make you resentful about the world, you know, resentful and judgmental of either people or the world or of God, then sin will tempt you and you will be ruined. Okay? And scene 2 is exactly that. Sin tempted him. Anger, his nature tempted him to act on his anger. And Cain really was ruined for it. Okay, so if you're not able to control your nature and resist the temptation of sin, then you will be tempted to judge God, be angry, and bad things will happen. Okay? So, again, this is not a slam dunk, but to me, the second punctuation passes the two tests that the translator's punctuation does not. In that, first, it harmonizes with the tone of the speech. Okay, the music matches the content. You know, the tone is gentle and caring, and the content is gentle and caring. Whereas the translator's punctuation, again, the two clash. The content clashes with the tone. So that's one test. The second test is that of the book of Job, which again is questionable, whether we should expect the two to deliver the same message. But God's speech in Cain lines up perfectly with God's speech in Job. Okay? Whereas in the sense that unlike the translator's punctuation, and unlike what the three friends suggest, God here, like in Job, God doesn't bother to explain or justify his actions to Cain or Job. God is not going to sit in the defendant's chair for Job or Cain. Okay? Instead, he tells them both to move on. Don't try to understand or judge me. Don't give in to the sinful temptation of resentment and ingratitude. Okay, so again, it's a theory, but it seems to have more going for it in the sense that stylistically the content matches the tone, and here, let me stop sharing. And it lines up with the with the with a similar story in another book. Okay, it has a similar theological or theological or moral answer to the problem of theology, theodicy. Okay. So, so the question again is, it's no coincidence that the translators, your translators, my translator, when you look at most versions in the in the English language, and some of them are simply translations of the Greek. The ancient Greek translators and modern English translators interpret or punctuate God's speech the way they do, like the second rendering there. Okay, instead of reading the lines in a way that matches the tune or the tone, they punctuated the text the way in a way that doesn't. It kind of clashes with the tone. So why is that?
It would have to be the same explanation that we came up before with why the two is kind of ignored, that trying to make sense of why bad things happen to people who don't seem to deserve it.
All right, look, I think there's two reasons. First of all, again, just like in the first one, the translators, commentators are defending God. They're defending God against the charge of injustice and arbitrariness and capriciousness. But also, if you already, if you're translating this after you translated verse 4, the one about the gift, then you have to. Okay? You've already given the explanation that Cain's gift was crappy. Now you're committed to the storyline. So now you have God speaking these words. Okay? But you're right. It's an effort by the reader, or by the translator, or by the commentator, the rabbi, to defend God, that the student might get, from a kind of a simple surface reading, you might think that God is arbitrary. When you read the book of Job, you might think that God is more than arbitrary. God is cruel, and to win a bet, he killed all these people, destroyed this man's life, etc., etc. Sounds terrible. Then come the rabbis, come the commentators. No. Let me defend God for you. And that's why Job is such a difficult book for ethicists and monotheistic commentators. Because they won't... The commentators have a hard time accepting God's own explanation of himself. Okay? They're more likely to slide towards one of the three friends. But, okay. And they, basically, the commentators definitely play the role of the three friends in the Cain story. Okay? So, the second picture, my punctuation, leaves God undefended against the charge of capriciousness and arbitrariness. It leaves the reader with God not explaining his actions to us. And so you're left not understanding God. And it's a... If theodicy is such a big problem in religion, it's a problem for teachers to have this be the message. Injustice, cruelty, and everything else, just live with it. Don't ask. You're not competent to understand, so don't ask. Okay, but it seems that it seems to me that is the answer that the text offers in God's own words. That God himself offers both to Cain and to Job. Theory. Okay. But certainly it just seems that the two stories really are connected. They're about a frustrated man who doesn't understand God. So obviously the speech did no good. Whatever God said there, it did not. Whether he said it with the one punctuation method or the other, it didn't calm Cain down. Cain's inability to understand why God did what he did continues to frustrate him. He stews in his embarrassment and resentfulness, and he murders his brother. But again, the text doesn't tell us why. Okay, so why does he murder Abel?
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that he somehow feels like he's in competition with Abel, or Abel may have made that competition by following up Cain's offer with his own offering that was accepted as opposed to Cain's. So it seems like jealousy or competition.
Yeah. So it's either jealousy of Abel, or this kind of effort, either jealousy for past humiliation, or kind of a forward-thinking elimination of the competition. What's the other? What's another explanation for murdering Abel?
I guess it could be just Cain didn't like Abel. It had nothing to do with being jealous. But why wouldn't he have done that earlier?
Well, why not? Exactly. Yeah.
It could be that, I guess Abel could have provoked Cain, but that seems to fall under our first explanation.
Yeah, and yeah. But look, it's kind of like with maybe it's a jealousy. Maybe this falls under the jealousy rubric, but maybe it's anger at God. Okay? Here, I'm going to kill your favorite thing. Okay, you like Abel better? Here, dead, gone. Okay, so maybe it's a punishment against God, not against Abel per se. But so there are two or three. I think basically all of them line up under jealousy or anger, or kind of eliminating the competition. Does it matter why? I mean, like I said, the text doesn't explain why Cain did it. Does it matter why he did it? I mean, does it matter to you is what I mean. For the story, for the lesson.
It does seem troublesome in that the thing that sets the whole thing off is the biblical God's reaction to these two offerings. Had he reacted differently, it seems like Cain wouldn't have killed Abel. And if the biblical God didn't know Cain well enough to know that he would react that way, which might be suggested by the fact that he asks, "Why are you distressed and why is your face falling?"
Well, look, God often asks things.
Right, rhetorical questions.
Like, Adam, where are you? Of course he knows where. What did you do?
Right.
How do you know you're naked?
So then, if he did know that Cain would react that way, then why did he accept one offering?
Well, what does God say? How does God answer your question?
Where is your brother Abel? I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?
No. I mean, in 5 to 7. I'm sorry, in 6-7.
Oh, 6-7.
Yeah.
Maybe it says.
Because look, you're putting
some couches at the door. He's saying that there's sin always at the door, no matter what.
Right.
And it can be let in or it can't, and Cain just happened to let sin in.
Right. It's not the fact that Cain did what he did is not God's fault. The fact that Hitler did what he did is not God's fault. The fact that the neighborhood rapist did what he did is not God's fault. Okay? Sin lies at your door, and you either, where is it? You either rule it or you don't rule it. Okay, that's whenever we talk about free will, this is what we're talking about. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not God that made the murderer murder. It's not God that made the abusive husband strike his wife. Okay? It's your human nature and your inability or unwillingness or lack of desire to rule it, to keep a firm hold of your anger or your jealousy or whatever else. But
So under the reading, though, it would definitely land on that God is not omnipotent.
Yeah.
And that bad things are going to happen, and it's not God who's causing bad things. Or
look, that's a problem we'll talk about free will, but that's a problem with free will. Well, I don't know if it's a problem. At some point, big question as to when. At some point, we monotheists develop the idea that God is all-knowing, all-powerful,
Yep.
etc., and that clashes philosophically with the idea of free will, but it also clashes with a variety of things that are written here in God's book.
Yeah, clashes with the narrative of the text.
Yeah.
But
But
that means there's another problem.
That would be God's answer to your question.
Mhm.
Why did God do it, knowing that it would make Cain do this? If Cain really is in control of his own fate, then God didn't know. Number one. And number two, it's not the wife's, the wife who annoys her husband is not responsible for her punching her in the face. Yeah? It's not the provocation that made him do it. It's him that made him do it. Okay. But yeah, so in terms of what was the motivation for Cain? It is an open question. The text doesn't tell us, but for the purpose of the story, it doesn't matter. Whether it was anger at God, or anger or jealousy at Abel, or eliminating the competition moving forward. It is a question. One is more emotional than the other, but it doesn't matter. The act is the important part for the text's author here. Now, if you look at verse 9, after the murder. Okay, so he kills him, and then 9. What does the exchange between God and Cain, what does it recall? What does this conversation remind you of?
Back in Eden, who told you you were naked?
Right. Where are you?
Yeah.
Now, where are you? How do you know that you're naked, etc., etc.? Okay, so we have basically two big sins: the sin of the forbidden fruit and the sin of murder. And clearly, the audience, the readers, we are meant to recall that dialogue here. Okay, the similarities really are very, very clear. Adam, where are you? Cain, where is your brother? In both cases, God doesn't confront them with the accusation of the crime, but asks them questions to elicit a confession. Okay? Where are you, Adam? How did you know that you're naked? Cain, where's your brother? So what are the differences in the response? Okay, so the question is meant to kind of hook, to remind you of that previous conversation after a previous sin. What are the differences, and what are you supposed to get from these differences?
Adam confesses and said that he ate from the tree, but then he blames it on Eve.
Right. Well,
Cain doesn't do that. Cain just says,
"You're right.
I'm a brother's keeper."
Yeah, but before then, even before Adam says what he says, he hides. Adam hides from God, Cain doesn't. Okay, so you're right that, Adam blames somebody else. He blames Eve, he blames God, the woman that you gave me, which Cain does not. Okay, so it's clearly Adam feels shame, and he's trying to pin the guilt on somebody else. And you see this also in the hiding. Adam feels shame, and therefore he hides, so that God won't call him on it. Cain, so again, it's shame with Adam, no shame with Cain. Shame with Adam, with the hiding, shame with the pawning off the guilt on somebody else, no shame for Cain. Also, like if Adam doesn't bother, Adam knows he did something wrong. Okay? Cain either professes not to know what happened, that I don't know what, where my brother is, or maybe he genuinely doesn't know he did anything wrong, which might explain why he's not ashamed. Okay, so when he says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Yeah. Do I have to keep my brother alive? I didn't know. Okay, and again, it's the same problem here with Cain's response to God. It's the same problem as with God's speech, and that is no punctuation marks. Okay, so so when we read Cain's response, we should be cognizant. We should try to not have any kind of pauses or music or punctuations that we insert into the text, because when we punctuate, we insert our understanding into the text, and we might be missing the author's message, or we might be missing a different way of reading. So when you, what are the words in your translation?
In 9?
In 9, yeah.
The Lord said to
where's Abel
Cain,
your brother?
"Where is your brother Abel?"
Uh-huh.
And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And he
Okay.
said, "What have you done?"
Yeah, no, that's fine, yeah. So I didn't, so those are the exact words that I have here. I did not know, am the keeper of my brother, am I? Well, just a Hebrew thing. So when Cain responds, again, without punctuation, what you read, the words you see in the text are, I don't know, I don't or didn't. It's the same in Hebrew in this respect. I don't, I'll just again read it without intonation. I don't or didn't know I am my brother's keeper. Okay, so the question is how to read it. Where to pause, where to raise your voice in for a question mark. So he could be saying, where's Abel your brother? I don't know. I am my brother's keeper. Okay, so a semicolon and then a question mark at the end. Okay, or he might be saying a plain sentence without any breaks and without question marks, saying, I didn't know I am my brother's keeper. Same words, a different sentence construction. Okay, so and we cannot know whether the author intended there to be commas, semicolons, question marks, and if so, where. So translators might be adding, they might be correct in adding a semicolon in the middle and a question mark at the end. Okay, I don't know where Abel is. I'm my brother's keeper. But it might be that your translator is wrong, and maybe Cain is simply saying to God, I didn't know I was my brother's keeper. Okay, so it's something I always tell my undergraduates, that they think that when we correct them on their punctuations, we're just being pedantic. But it really is, other than knowing the words of the English language, it's vital to know where to punctuate, because otherwise you can't communicate effectively to others. Basically, you're just saying words and you're letting other people punctuate them for you and insert their meaning into it. But whichever way you punctuate Cain's response, what he's saying, and again, we don't know if it's honest or kind of coyly. Is he saying this honestly, or is he being coy and dishonest? But he's saying that he is not his brother's keeper. And this explains why, I think, when you look at that difference from Adam to Cain, the shame to no shame, those three different instances that we identified, I think this explains why Cain is not ashamed of what he did. He's not hiding. He's not pawning it off on somebody else. And what was the third thing? Not hiding. What was the last thing?
I mean,
oh yeah, Adam knew that he did something wrong. Cain is saying that he doesn't know that he did anything wrong. Okay, he's not. And look, it's kind of like if you're driving 60 miles an hour in a 35-mile zone, but you didn't see the sign that it was 35. You thought that you were still on the main road. Then you're driving 60, but you think that you're not doing anything wrong. So you're not going to run away from the cop because you don't think you're going over the speed limit. And when a cop stops you, you're not going to lie to him and say that you were going 35. And you're not going to blame somebody else. You're not going to blame your wife for distracting you or making you do it. Instead, you're going to say what Cain said. You're going to say to the cop, I didn't know. This is a 35-mile zone. I didn't know, semicolon. This is a 35-mile zone. Or, again, in a different punctuation, I didn't know this is a 35 zone. Okay, it's your honest defense. Okay, and that's why you're not running away, or hiding, or blaming other people, or denying or anything. It seems to be this seems to be Cain's defense. I didn't know. I didn't know I'm my brother's keeper. Okay, so it really, when people kind of explain what happened here, and explain God's punishment, they point to this moral ignorance. That Cain seems to have. Actually, let's go to the punishment and see how this relates. So I asked you to think about whether the punishment is just. What do you think?
in one sense, it's not, life for life. But Cain seems to think that this is more punishment than he deserves. It's more than he can bear. Doesn't match punishment after the flood.
Right. So well, actually, what is he even punished? What is the punishment?
He's cursed. Shall you be more than the cattle and the wild beasts? He gets cursed, I guess. I'm sorry. I was in the wrong. You banished me from the soil. I must avoid your presence and become a restless wanderer on the earth.
Yeah.
Anyone who meets me will kill me. So no one has protection.
But look, let's put away that anyone who meets me will kill me, because that's not God's punishment. Okay, but it's 11 and 12.
More cursed than the ground, which opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood, and from your hand And then if
The,
you till, you shall no longer yield the strength. It shall no longer yield the strength to you. You should become a ceaseless wanderer.
Yeah.
So the earth is
the
not
earth will
going to
not
give him
the earth will not
fruits.
produce for you. You've been an agriculturalist, a farmer. The earth will not produce fruit for you anymore, any produce for you, and so you'll have to leave the land. Well, it says kind of a wanderer, but we know that that's not the case.
Yeah,
He settled. He established a city and became just basically the punishment. Never mind. The punishment is switching professions. Okay, so he builds a city, becomes the site of commerce and manufacture. He had a child, and he, unlike anyone else, I think, in human history, since before or since, had God's personal protection. Okay, so anyone who murdered Cain would face God's own vengeance sevenfold. It doesn't explain what that means, but yeah, being killed 7 times or having 7 family members killed in retaliation for killing Cain, but it doesn't matter. The point is, like you said, the common punishment for murder in the Bible is death, capital punishment. And again, God will institute that principle after the flood when He gives new laws to Noah. So here, the readers or the listeners who encountered this story 3,000 years ago must have been really confused and perplexed as to why God didn't punish Cain with death. Okay, and first of all, it doesn't seem like much of a punishment. Because you murdered someone, you're going to have to change professions. Okay, it doesn't seem, like you said, it doesn't seem to match the severity of the crime. Okay? So that's one thing, that it doesn't seem like a real punishment. And on top of that, God, there's this issue of, these are people who are very familiar with capital punishment, especially if they're biblical. The Bible is full of capital punishment. And add to that God's personal protection for Cain. So readers, commentators have been trying to solve this puzzle for 3,000 years, as to why is the death penalty not applied to Cain? Because the one thing we can be certain of is that it's not that the Bible is uncomfortable with capital punishment. Okay? The Bible is very comfortable with it elsewhere. And in the Bible and in justice systems throughout the world, throughout history, the principle of justice is demonstrated and articulating by matching the severity of the punishment to the severity of the crime. Okay, that's the guiding principle of human justice. Okay, so that and Cain even suggests it. That people will kill me, because that's the standard of human justice. So if this penalty for Cain is divine justice, a different standard of justice, what is this justice? How would commentators explain that the punishment, God's punishment, does match the crime here?
Punishment seems to be connected to the earth, but that seems to be could be that Abel was worth less than later human. I don't know how that's supported.
Yeah.
Other than he's replaced right away with Seth.
Yeah. So like one explanation is that maybe he hurt his family, and therefore he has to leave, and then, as you say, he's replaced. But Cain still gets to have a family, his own family. So, maybe. But what would be a way to look if the punishment doesn't seem to match the crime, the severity of the crime? Then the commentators can do one of two things: either make the crime not as offensive, so now it'll match the lenient punishment, or they can explain that this punishment looks lenient, but in fact it's really terrible, really severe. So what way could they do that? Could they do one of these two things? And again, thinking of what Cain offered in his own defense.
That he didn't know.
Right. Like what do we call it when somebody kills another man without intending?
Manslaughter, but he definitely intended it.
Well, we don't know, right?
Well, even if he didn't know if it was wrong, he definitely still intended. Oh, I guess maybe he didn't know that death was a thing.
He didn't, exactly. This is the first death in the Bible. I didn't know. How could I know that by slamming you on the head with a rock, or however, how did he kill? No, it doesn't even say. Okay, I didn't know that by stabbing you in the heart with a pike, that this thing would happen to you. I didn't know what death was. Okay, not to mention the fact that there was no law against it. Okay? The only law that God gave humans was a dietary law, to eat fruits and vegetables. That's it. Okay. So some commentators through the ages have again downgraded the murder to manslaughter. I mean, they don't say manslaughter, but that it's killing with taking a life without intent to murder. Still a crime, but not the same crime. Okay, so he killed Abel without understanding what he was doing, either because he didn't know what death was and what murder was, or because he didn't know that murder was wrong, which is what Cain himself says. I didn't know that I was my brother's keeper. Okay, and again, how would he know, given that murder had just been invented? He was the inventor.
But it's odd, though, that like right after that, he's worried about getting killed by a whole bunch of other people.
Well, not at the time. Only after God curses him. After God kind of clarifies that this is a terrible act, terrible deed.
But he seems to be aware of other people and other people's desire to kill.
Yeah,
that's strange.
Yeah, that is true. Well, look, it might be that since God has clarified that this is an offense, your brother's blood are shouting at you from. So since God is now retroactively, God, you didn't tell us that this was wrong. Now that you're telling humanity that this is wrong, people will kill me because you're telling them that I'm a terrible person. So it might be in response to God's critique of his work. But the reason the commentators have done this is because now, again, they're defending God. Now the punishment matches the crime. Because for manslaughter, the punishment in the Bible is banishment. You have to leave your city and go to one of those. It's called cities of refuge. So if you kill by mistake, and you want to avoid the blood vengeance of the victim's family, you have to leave your town and go to one of these, I forget how many of them there were, cities of refuge. Okay, and that's how you avoid losing your life at the hands of the victim or of the hands of the justice system, of the victim's family, I mean. So that's a solution that is traditionally offered. Downgrading the crime because of moral ignorance or legal ignorance or biological ignorance, not knowing what death is and what killing is. Look, like I said, I'm skeptical. We know that they knew what killing a sheep was, because Abel just killed a sheep to give to God. So I'm skeptical of both explanations, but I don't have another solution to this problem of why the punishment doesn't match because God seems to be quite upset by the crime, and yet he gives the most lenient slap on the wrist and personal protection. So I don't know what God is doing here, but then again, the whole story's purpose, I think, is to clarify to us readers that it's not our province to judge God's justice. Okay? The story just told us, with regard to Cain's offering, that God seems unjust, that if God seems unjust to us, we should remind ourselves, like in the book of Job, or how I see Cain, that we don't always have the perceptiveness or depth or breadth to understand or comprehend God's considerations. Okay? And God doesn't explain himself to us. God doesn't explain why he's doing why this bizarre punishment is being offered here. God doesn't sit in the witness box, doesn't give us an account of himself, and we don't have the wisdom or perceptiveness to understand or to judge God. Not to mention that it's not our role anyways. So I guess if I'm saying that I don't understand what God is doing here, maybe that's the whole lesson of the Cain story. Cain didn't understand what God was doing at that altar. Okay? And he's supposed to just accept that you don't understand, it's not your job to understand. Maybe. But certainly commentators have been struggling with this issue for thousands of years. Okay, so their solution is you have to do one of those two things. But what we can definitely judge is the result of God's weird punishment. Okay, so if you jump to the next crime, and that is to Lamech in 23. Okay, so Cain goes on, has a family, builds a city, becomes successful. Okay, so not a very punishing punishment. And then one of his descendants is Lamech, who in 23-24 has that jubilant poem about his accomplishments. Okay, so when we went from Adam to Cain, or I don't know if I guess we should elevate it in terms of the seriousness of the crime. We went from Adam to Cain, now to Lamech. And it's clear from this song of praise that he sings to himself that he's proud of what he's done. Like, he's not hiding, he's not pawning it up. He's taking credit for this great thing he's done. He's telling his wives, you're married to a great man. I killed a man just for wounding me. I killed a child just for bruising me. Okay? If anyone just touches me, he's dead. Because, as he says, where is it? 23? Yeah. Because if Cain was, if Cain warranted a sevenfold vengeance from God, to protect Cain, then I deserve 77-fold vengeance. Is that how you have it in your translation?
I have slain a man for wounding me and a lad for bruising me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold.
Yeah. Okay. So if Cain, with his act of murder, earned, again, God's protection to Cain was that if anyone touches Cain, God will avenge Cain 7 times over. So Lamech says if Cain earned that kind of vengeance, sevenfold, I deserve 77-fold. I'm even greater than Cain. Okay. So what's the author trying to convey to us by this? Look, you have this genealogy, and then Lamech, and then the genealogy continues. Okay. So what's the function of these 2 verses about Lamech? What's the message?
Seems that things have gotten tough. That that there's a lot of violence, and the fact that he'd be proud of this violence would mean that this violence goes unchecked.
Right. That it. Look, we are heading towards Noah. Okay, towards that terrible society, and God just is so disgusting. He's going to kill it all. Okay, and so this is a little in-between station on the way to Noah to demonstrate, as we go through this genealogy, to let you know what the direction is. Okay, that it shows the moral degeneration over the generations that have just been recounted for us, from Adam to Cain, and then even more so from Cain to Lamech. Okay, so the author is kind of planting the seed to set us up to understand why God became so disgusted with the human race that he decided to destroy it. Actually, if you could skip to chapter 6. Verse 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So God saw the evil nature, the bad nature of man in the land, and every impulse and thought of his heart is just for evil all day. And God regretted that he made man in the land, and became saddened, and his heart became saddened. And he said, I will wipe the man that I have, mankind that I have created from the face of the earth. From man to beast to insect and fowl of the sky, because I regret making them. But Noah found grace in God's eye. Okay, so so instead of the author of the narrator simply telling us at the setup at the beginning of the Noah story that hey, humanity had grown wicked, he shows us again this decline from Adam to Cain to Lamech. Okay. And so why where do you see the decline from Adam to Cain, and even worse to Lamech? Why is Lamech so much worse than Cain?
So if Adam had felt shame, Cain felt nothing, and Lamech is proud
Exactly.
of.
Yeah. He sees murder as a good thing. Okay. For Cain, it really was just nothing. You know, it either he didn't know he was killing, or if he knew he was killing, I didn't know it was like it. I didn't know it was wrong. Okay, nobody told me that I'm supposed to watch over my brother and make sure he doesn't die. Okay, but like you say, Lamech opens, explicitly connects himself to Cain. Telling his wives that he is a greater man than Cain. Okay, so we know from Lamech's speech that he looks at Cain as a role model. That he Lamech is surpassing. Okay, so if Cain either again didn't know that murder is wrong, or didn't know why it was wrong, because again God never told him not to murder. But Lamech clearly sees murder as a positive good, as something to be proud of. Okay, which is why Lamech isn't ashamed of his murderous ancestor Cain. He admires Cain and aims to outdo Cain. Okay. So what you see here with Lamech is that humans were truly ignorant, morally speaking. Okay, they didn't. Lamech genuinely does not know that this is a bad thing. He thinks it's a good thing. Okay, it's kind of like how we look at Hitler. Okay, that not only did he not know it was bad, he thought it was a great thing that he was doing, a service to humanity. Okay. So why is it, why is Lamech so moral, or why is humanity? Lamech is just one example. Why were humans so morally ignorant at the time? What explains? Again, the book doesn't tell us, but what do you think explains the fact that people didn't understand that murder was wrong? Why did Lamech? How did Lamech come to admire Cain rather than be horrified by Cain?
It would seem to me, I guess, that if the world around these people was violent and not civilized, and the only people who were surviving or getting by were the most violent, it would leave little room for morality, like perhaps the luxury of morality.
Well, but look, there are plenty of places in the world. Look, take the Arabian Peninsula at the birth of Islam. Okay. People really did live by the sword, and in Islam and in pre-Islamic tribal law, they could, again, very harsh environment, economically speaking, and in terms of violence. They had laws against murders. I mean, they didn't have law, they didn't have a state, but they had tribal law, where a murderer would get avenged. A murder victim would get avenged by killing the perpetrator.
So I guess is Lamech endorsing murder, or is he just endorsing people who come against him and killing those who come against him? I mean, he does say like a young boy.
He clearly says that the punishment, killing them, was way out of proportion to their offense. because where is it now? Oh, 23.
23. Speech, I've slain a man for wounding me.
Yeah, yeah. So he wounded me, I killed him. And then a child gave me a bruise, and I killed him. Okay, so he's clearly setting up a punishment far greater than the offense.
No.
Yeah. But you're right. You know, it's not just some guy on the street that he murdered.
Or his family, or like his tribe.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people coming at him.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, these are enemies. You're right. Actually, that's a good point. That maybe we're making too much of this because these are enemies that he's killing, or people that he sees as enemies. Okay.
But
Yeah.
if that is the case, then he's in a rough spot. He's surrounded by enemies.
Yeah. No. So you're absolutely right. I think if you're right, if we should take particular note of the fact that this person did wound him, and this child did bruise him, then then we might simply be arguing whether you should see them as mortal enemies or just rivals, or just a little scuffle. But we accept that, look, if they're your mortal enemies, then yes, killing is legitimate in the context of war. So you're right, but the reason I think people haven't read this story this way is because they see it as if that were the case, then this would not seem to be a story of moral decline, but simply a story of a rough environment, of kind of a Hobbesian world of war of all against all. Which, again, might be true, but it doesn't kind of match the setup for the Noah story, where God is saying that they're that man's heart is full of evil, etc., etc. Because again, killing your enemies, killing your mortal enemies in war is not evil. God never says so. In fact, God recommends it later on in the Bible. So usually it's presented as a sign of Lemech's moral monstrosity, or humanity's moral monstrosity. But the thing is, look, if you're how would, if this is, and again, I think your reading of it is completely legitimate, although I don't think it's how the author intended it. It seems to me that the author intends this little tidbit to be an indication of moral decline. But if it is a matter of not understanding that Cain's crime was a bad thing, but thinking that Cain's crime was a laudable thing, and not understanding that murder is wrong, where would people have gotten this understanding that murder is fine? In fact, murder is something great to be proud of and boast to your wives about.
It would seem to come from I just have it in my head that it's like a modern day gangster movie. Like, gangsters are proud that they rack up body counts because it shows how tough they are and how people shouldn't mess with them, and it becomes a virtue and not a vice.
Yeah, but look, the text tells you. Okay, it's not a matter for us to contemplate. The text tells you where Lemech got the idea.
That he got it from Cain. Or he got it from, well, I guess sevenfold would be God's protection over Cain.
Right.
So he got it from God.
He got it from God. Any normal, what lesson would a normal person draw from Cain's non-punishment punishment for murder, and then from God's extraordinary protection for Cain by outlawing capital punishment against Cain? Okay? if you're normal, and again, if you're trying to understand God's moral code, okay, you see a man murdering his brother, and what God says is, okay, you're going to have to quit your job and get another job that's better. Cain becomes a successful man, founds a city, commerce, industry, etc., has a family, many descendants, and God himself is this murderer's personal bodyguard. If we're rational people because we ate from the tree of knowledge, how are we going to interpret this? Obviously a great man, Cain. God himself applauds his act. Again, it seems from the outside. Lamech didn't read the Bible, but just from the story of Cain, you'd have to be unreasonable not to understand things the way, not to get the moral education that Lamech got. And you see that this is the case because even God comes to understand that his bizarre punishment for Cain had terrible consequences. Okay? We know this because when he wipes out humanity and restarts again with Noah's family, he will go back and change this ruling. Okay, this prohibition against capital punishment that he establishes after Abel's murder is reversed when God instead, after the flood, mandates capital punishment for murderers. Okay, so God himself saw what is the result of a society in which capital punishment is not applied, where the punishment for murder is not losing your life. Okay, and he corrects.
In that reading, though, God would learn from a mistake.
Look, that
would be the implication.
That's the implication. Look, God changes. God establishes one kind of dietary law for humanity before the flood, a different kind after. One kind of justice for murderer before, a different kind after. The thing about God's perfection is, what we take from God's perfection, from the idea of God's perfection, is that God doesn't change his mind. Okay? If God is perfect, then this divine truth is true today and tomorrow and 1,000 years from now. And it's true in the Middle East and in North America and in outer space. If God is perfect and all-knowing and timeless, etc., etc. Look, we'll talk about this when we...
But then the wickedness right before the flood, I guess God would somehow be responsible, because if he did known or done things differently, it wouldn't have got to that point.
Yeah.
Can we make that inference?
Well, certainly it seems that God is making that inference. That he had a role in... Look, if he didn't... I'll say it this way. Again, we can't know what God is thinking. God is not explaining himself. But we can... Look, we're jumping a bit ahead of ourselves, but if you go to the story of Abraham, how does God know that Abraham is devoted to him? Only when he lifts his hand to sacrifice Isaac. Okay? It's the action that shows God Abraham's heart. Okay? By the same token, we can't know God's heart or God's mind. Okay? We do see his actions. And in this case, we see him with a clear statement about capital punishment for murderers, and then a completely opposite, really 180 degrees, punishment for murderers. We have to assume that, again, it can't be that for God it is immoral to kill murderers at one date and moral another date. It suggests a learning process. Just like, and I'll quote, we'll repeat this next week, I'm assuming. Why do I keep missing this? Oh, yeah. In 6:6:7. 6:6 and 6:7. God regretted that he created man in the land. And God said that he'll wipe them off there because I regret that I made them. Okay? That is God telling us that he's learning. God in his I don't have to tell you that it seems like, okay, it's embarrassing to say that God is learning, that God didn't know something. God himself is saying it. I learned that it was a bad idea. I thought it was a good idea. It turns out it was a bad idea. And later on, again in the Noah story, God will say, I see now that the nature of man is evil from its youth, or something like that. Okay? So again, when we get to Exodus and talk about God hardening Pharaoh's heart, it opens up a whole Pandora's box about God's powers versus lack of power, and what God can do and cannot do, and what God knows and doesn't know. But again, so we'll talk about more completely then. But it might be that this understanding of God as perfection has more to do with Platonic thinking about God than with biblical thinking about God. It might be. But it certainly sounds like parts of the Bible suggest that God is not all power, insist that God is not all powerful versus the human heart, and maybe not even all knowing. That God learns, that God doesn't understand what human beings are until he gets more experience with them. Okay. Okay. So actually, next week, what I want to do is really to investigate this, to see, why God changes so radically on this, why he warns people to not punish Cain with capital punishment, but then after the flood, he demands that people punish murderers with capital punishment, and why this is so, and what's the connection to? Because again, these are the new laws that he gives humanities, and after the flood, and to see what the connection is between these two new laws. Because again, God flips on both the diet. The only two laws he gave humanity were a vegetarian diet, and then no capital punishment for murderers. Okay, for the first he gives to Adam, the second he gives pronounces after Abel's murder. Okay.
Don't kill Cain.
Pardon?
I'm assuming announces it to the rest of mankind in some fashion or another.
We have
not to kill Abel.
We have to
not to kill Cain, even though he killed Abel.
Yeah, because look, we know that Lamech knows about the warning about sevenfold. So somehow humanity became aware of God's position on this. And on both of these, so these are the only two rules that God set up for humanity. And he changes both of them by 180 degrees after the flood. Okay, and so we'll see kind of what why the flip is.
He establishes law courts too, right? There'll be courts that'll enforce the.
Oh yeah. But again, this is the standard of justice. Again, look, the courts were there, or maybe not courts, but people would have punished Cain. Okay, but the standard was, look, it seems like humans if we read below the surface of what Cain says, that humans had this idea that murderers should be killed, and God tells them no. Okay, and then after the flood, God comes around to accepting the human standard from Cain's day. So it is a bit weird. And again, what's the connection between the two laws, the vegetarian diet and no capital punishment for murderers, and a carnivorous diet or omnivorous diet, and death penalty for murderers. But that's for next week.
Sounds good. I look forward to it. That's a difficult.
It's
interesting.
Yeah, the Noah story is great. Again, Genesis is my favorite book. What's your favorite book?
No, I'd have to say Genesis too.
Yeah. It's I guess Genesis, and a close second. Not close. Second would be Judges, but those are the. Yeah, but Genesis is great. All right. Anything else?
Do we want to get through the flood next time?
Yeah. So. I'll send you an email, but basically it's 6 to chapter 6 to. Yeah, 9. Yeah, basically the post flood is chapter 9. Still with Noah's family, the rainbow in the sky, etc. Okay, so 6, 7, 8, 9.
6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Oh, and we're going to get into the Noah's drunken episode.
I don't know if you're ready for that. I don't want to corrupt you. You seem like a sweet guy. Yeah, we'll see if we can make it on time. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. See you then.
Take care. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Bye-bye.